Like some
Yeah,
good
chocolate.
mints.
All right, we are all set.
Like your peppermint pie.
Heidi.
You know, I'm looking for like a Tic Tac.
Okay, all
Alright,
right.
never mind.
We have the hard stuff.
Yeah, no.
So let's adjourn this meeting. It is February 3rd, 2026. Call to order, roll call.
Heidi Silverio,
Present.
Angel Newman,
Present.
Michelle Fox.
Present.
Now we're on to item 2, which is the approval of the agenda. Need a motion?
One second.
All in favor? Aye. Moving on to 3.0, which is the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of our January 21st meeting? All in favor? Aye. Okay, now we're moving to item 4.0, which is policy and planning. 4.1, which is discussion and review of selected revised policies to be presented by committee members. So I came today, pass it to you guys. One of the ones that I had that was supposed to be for me to do was the review tool. I call it kind of like the activity policy review with our guards and guardrails, goals and guardrails. So I did kind of a draft of,
Is that in the packet here?
no, it's right here. I did a draft of one. I wanted to get your feedback on it, see if there's anything you guys wanted to add to it. If you guys have any thoughts, I know this part of the agenda, my idea was just kind of, I know we all have our parts that we were supposed to do. So I just wanted to see if you guys had done any revisions on the policies that were presented on your behalf. And I also did a revision on the school board superintendent relation one, but we can get to that later. And then we can talk about this first and then talk about the other ones. After, I know Sarah, you have some stuff that you have printed out.
Yeah, but there was also stuff in the packet, so, there's the listening to lead policy first draft, and a core beliefs policy. And then, looks like the goals and guardrails governance framework in the packet, and then I just gave out the policy that I had done from President Stevens' draft, which is the process for adopting policies. And additionally, I put together this, I didn't use Excel, but I did a table format of all the core board policies, the policies that we'd like to have the board own, and then I legally required policies. These aren't absolutely, there may be some missing ones, but I just started listing them. These are all places in which federal or state law requires that there be some kind of policy. It doesn't mean that these all have to be owned by the board, but I wanted to get a complete list of every place where some legislator says you should have a policy, so that we have a complete list. And I do think there are a couple things that I've left out, but it can be added to.
I'm not exactly sure where we want to start, but I do want to just mention, just for transparency, I had a conversation with Secretary Thompson, President Stevens. I wasn't here at the last meeting because I teach, so I was very unclear like why I was assigned the policies I was assigned, and I did speak frankly with President Stevens that I felt like I was assigned things that are not within my skill set and not my line of work necessarily, and would love to have been consulted about what I wanted to do. This isn't to air grievances whatsoever, but it is to say that I did core beliefs. Me and Michelle, we spoke about how we could rearrange some things because there's like quite a few on Michelle's list that I'm like, that's the core of my work. I feel like that's where my expertise lives, and I think I'd be give better service to this committee if I worked on some of those. I'm willing to do whatever, but I just want to.
So this
So we're
is
not-
just a working document.
Yeah. No worries.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. I just for transparency, like I do want to just make sure.
We changed the initials.
Yeah, just changing some stuff and just like as we go forward, I think just figuring out what the flow for who takes what. Making sure folks like feel good about that. That's just a request.
Yeah, is there anyone that you wanted to change now? This was, all of these assignments are given by President Stevens.
Yeah.
So if there's anyone that you wanna change, give up, like you don't feel comfortable, or you feel more comfortable, did you have time to look over that list and identify that?
Yeah, I can give it more thought, but, I wanna talk to Secretary Thomas because I don't wanna like just take things from her specifically, but I do feel like Rachel and I think, equity, like we talked about, core beliefs or code of ethics. I do think like stuff around like race and equity and like vision is like where I thrive and is more aligned to my roles on the board, so I feel like it would be a better fit. I think stuff around like superintendent and other, I just think that there's some clear delineations of work that exists within our job descriptions on the board, so I feel like it makes most sense to sort of separate in that way. So yeah, I think I would love to talk with Secretary Font so her and I are on the same page about what we want to do, like we did this time around, and I felt good about that. She did goals and guardrails, I did core beliefs, and I think that worked fine.
Well, for these ones that you have, is there any that you don't wanna take ownership of?
I think superintendent performance, I would say that's within Secretary Font's role as secretary, so.
Okay.
Well, and I don't want to like push that to you if you don't want that.
No, that's fine, sis, and I think you should take racial and ethnic equity. I
Yeah.
remember the conversation we had
Mhm.
eons ago where you had specifically wanted that.
Mhm.
And code of ethics, that's not under anybody, so put your initials there.
I think maybe code of ethics is fine. I mean, I think I was really mostly concerned about core beliefs, to be
Yeah.
honest.
And the racial and ethnic.
Yeah.
So where it says MF, that will be changed to
Mhm.
AN, and racial and ethnic equity would be AN. Board professional development and new members.
Sis, you wanna do that one too?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think,
AN.
Yeah.
and I do think it just because you're gonna have to be the one doing it, I'd rather have you do the superintendent one.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
From what I understand, you have to implement that, do you know what I mean?
That's fine with me.
And what about, we didn't assign there was no one assigned to code of ethics, but the
Yeah.
policy process, I did a draft of that, and that's here today.
You did the code of ethics one?
No, I did the policy process. Keep in mind, you don't have to do a policy exactly like what's listed there. It's just the topic that you
Yeah.
can reconfigure.
Yeah.
I think Angel's gonna take that one.
That was, so we had a conversation, I know President Stevens had spoken to you about potentially talking about like a board policy
Yeah.
handbook.
Yeah.
And then we thought the code of ethics would go in that, and that would be something as vice president that you would be
Yeah.
kind of creating like a handbook for the board.
That's totally fine. Yeah, that's totally fine.
So code of ethics would go AN.
Maybe put slash handbook next to that, because I think it's gonna be turned to handbook for the board.
Right? What about the board code of, I think that meant conduct, yeah.
Yeah, I think that all works. All the rest of that works. It was more just the superintendent stuff, and then the board would use some racial equity.
What about communication between board members? Is that you, Angel?
Yeah, I can take that.
I feel like that one would go in the board member handbook.
Yeah,
And superintendent responsibilities, who's doing that one?
That's underneath.
That's you, okay. And evaluation and performance, that's staying with you, Heidi. And board member concerns about non-superintendent employee performance, which we may not even want to have a policy, I've just listed it there because it's a council recommendation.
The superintendent evaluation fall under the secretary, I'd love to co-bring that with you, once you have it, could I have a look at it? Absolutely.
So that would be N and F.
If it's. Andrew, you're doing the board code of conduct, right? That's
Yeah.
in the handbook, okay, there's no need to. And any of the other ones, Andrew has, any of the you know, whatever, just let me know.
Yeah, no, I think I'm okay with that. I mean, once we get to like the art one, that's gonna be definitely the one I'm gonna
Right,
do.
right.
But I think just, me aside, you know what I mean? I just think that it's such a beautiful opportunity for all of us to learn how to work together to write policy, which is like a really unique opportunity with the school district. I think we all come with very similar expertise, but also very specific expertise, and so just maximizing that is important. And then also if it's related to the work we have to do on this board, I think as much as we can align those things, that's really what I'm advocating for, versus it feeling like a little bit of like a, you know, like just a mismatch. If folks are gonna have to spend their time on it, it should be on stuff they want, that they're passionate about, really, you know?
In the school board superintendent relations, that one's under me.
Which one?
The school board superintendent relations.
Oh,
That's you.
Yeah. That's cool. And I think, so what we had spoken about, President Stevens was here, is that we wanted to do like 2 to 3 policies every policy meeting that we had. Is that something you can? Because that's kind of, we're trying to get on track to review all of our policies, preferably by the end of this year. But I told them there's so many, if we only do like 1 policy a meeting, we're never gonna get to this list. But we also want to be realistic and intentional on how we're reviewing and, you know, how we're gonna do this list. So I was like 2 to 3, we can review a meeting, especially because a lot of them will be rewrites, but I don't know how much we're gonna rewrite them. Like the bigger ones, yeah, you know, the goals and guardrail one is basically done. We just have to adopt it as a policy, right? That's what we had spoken about last time.
I don't think we were taught. I'm sorry, the one that I did. The one
So
I
you
wrote
wanna
was the-
start going
yeah,
over
let's
the
just start,
policies you've
yeah.
got
Yeah.
in hand,
I
because
think that makes sense.
we've got, looks like we have 4.
Or,
Mhm.
Um,
I can start with you if you want.
Yep.
So the policy I got was to kind of put one together for the process of, how the school board should go about creating goals and guardrails. I titled it Listening to Lead Policy. That is absolutely a draft name, so any feedback on that? I did like a sub name, which I didn't see on any of the policies on the website, but it felt important. Establishing vision and values through community listening to inform goals and guardrails. Does anyone have any specific kind of ideas or thoughts or feedback on the name of the policy? Or how do you want to do this? Are we giving feedback in real time? Should I give people time to read and then read the things I could use feedback on?
I feel like we should, you wanna give us like 5 minutes to like read it, and then we'll put our comments and then we can talk about it.
Okay, that works. Yeah, if you guys want to look through it
so this is about the process of,
of creating how you get from listening sessions to goals and guardrails.
okay, so it's the goals and how to do the process.
Right, but not on an operational, like, specifics, but like on a overall macro kind of view, without getting into how they need to curate them or run them or.
Mhm.
And I used, the racial and ethnic, policy for template, but I added, I think, 2 or 3 boxes. This policy does not box in a documentation ownership and retention box. yeah, on first read, I know it's a quick little read and it was a lot to take in. How are people feeling? Any specific feedback? I know it is pretty lengthy, but a lot of it felt important. I try to remember the trainings we got from CGCS. I thought about the logistical part of, that we worked on and how we, moved through those listening sessions. And just try to keep it, not in the operational kind of realm, but in the overall kind of framework of how they should be run. So, yeah.
Can I ask a couple of
Yeah.
questions? So is the purpose of this policy, and I wasn't quite sure, is this just for the repeating of listening sessions every time you do those in guardrails?
Yes.
Or is it for everything?
It's for every time, every 5 years, or when they're redoing a whole.
Okay.
That was my understanding. Was that, okay.
Oh, I think, that makes sense, but I think then if you look at, under implementation on strategy.
Yep.
Section, the top paragraph.
Yep.
So you've already done the initial draft for the golden guardrail, so should this be, should this actually like reference the fact that this is the every 5-year draft?
Yeah, that's a good point. Policy every 5 years, so after policy put every 5 years when you.
Yeah,
Or
because I was confused, but then I saw under review cycle 5 years, so I thought that's what you meant, but I think just because initial,
Okay, yeah, I can definitely add it there, kind of wordsmith that a little better, so it's understood that this policy is brought out every 5 years, or how are we feeling if partway through the 5-year cycle, we hit the goal of one of our goals, so that was taken out. Should it be anytime a new goal or guardrail is gonna be?
that might go under monitoring or review. It's not there right now, but if you wanted to do something like that, I think it would go under monitoring or review a little bit further down.
Yeah, I think there should be some type of protection, with lasting power with the golden guard rails, but like the idea of having like cycles,
Yeah.
so that way things are not just shifting all the time. So I definitely think having like a 5-year period.
Something I would add, under your purpose, and I don't know, this is a great, it's the very first step. Very well done. Under the purpose, I think if that's, because I wasn't sure either, if this was, my initial understanding was this was about when you were doing listening sessions, period. But if it's specifically about goals and guardrails, I think you should say that very naming that purpose
Okay.
from the very beginning, and then let that just drive everything. So that would be my piece of feedback. I'm sorry, I have to go. I'm at Roger Williams. I've been there for like 3 weeks.
Oh.
And I'm going, I'm gonna be there till the person comes back. So I have a 7 o'clock meeting tomorrow with the parent. So I'm gonna
No, I wouldn't think you would.
try to get to bed a little bit earlier these days.
Absolutely.
But I want to pick up on one thing you got earlier
Have a good night.
that you just said, that is reinforcing it, which is that, I think a clearer statement at the inception of what this is
Yes.
would be helpful. And one bit of language that I thought could be moved to the front, that where you say on page,
General page, sorry.
where it says compliance with student outcomes focused governance. It says this policy is grounded in student outcomes focused governance principles. And you describe how you use community listening, you translate into goals and guardrails, and then you monitor. That kind of sums up right there what you're going to be describing. So I might take that paragraph or that block and put it in the front and use it as a more sort of direct, here's what this is going to tell you, like an introduction that summarizes it. We're gonna tell you about community listening, how to adopt goals and guardrails, and then how to monitor it. which is gonna happen on a 5-year track. And then you can go into each of those points, what's community listening, how you develop goals and guardrails. I think it's more about just making it clear right at the start what this policy is doing.
And then that for the purpose or in general?
And it really is like you're telling the reader, this is what this is, these pages are gonna describe in more detail, like an introduction.
I think when I wrote this, I'm not writing it from like this is someone looking at it for the first time. I'm writing it from like, I've done this, so I'm like.
This is just,
and I
this
forget
is
the
just
little,
what
like-
first drafts are. This is, I mean, it's just a way to, put that purpose language up front, and then you do your definitions, and then,
I like that you still, even if you put it in purpose, I would still put language about how this is complying with our one of those student outcomes.
Yeah.
Like,
because that's what's driving it. I mean,
Okay.
that's your
like
legal.
because I love that you put that in there, like, this is how it fits with our goals, like,
Okay.
this is why this matters.
Okay, just one quick question, just real quick. The Title VI policy, I talked to Lisa about it. I'm still waiting, so Stacy's been out a little bit, she had application. But I wanted to get it on the next board meeting regardless. But do I need to give you a copy ahead of time? And how does that work for things that we're bringing? Because Title VI is still something that is one of those that the board will approve, correct? So how do you want that to happen? Do I just send it to Martha and she gets it on the board, or do I just bring it to the meeting?
I think that's part of what we were gonna discuss tonight about our process, but I think best practice is to put everything in front of the policy committee before it goes
Yeah,
to.
I would
No, that's what I
say send
mean.
it to
What I'm saying
Martha.
is that should it be listed by law? Should it be listed on the agenda
Yeah.
for this meeting?
Yeah, so I would say for the process of this, if it's gonna be something that you want on the meeting, maybe send it to Martha, email me, Tyrell, and us, like, you can have all of us on.
You're
it.
talking about the next
Just-
policy.
The next policy. I
Probably
just want to make
like
sure
a
I don't
week.
break any rules, because you have an agenda that's published
Yeah.
online. So I'm assuming that if I'm bringing something, or if any of us are bringing something, it should be.
It's gotta be.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
we
can't
it's
talk
gotta be
about it
listed.
unless it's noticed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'd say like email me and Tyrell, at least a week in advance to the meeting if you want something on the agenda.
Okay.
That way you can get it to Martha, Martha can get it to us, and we can review it and then get here with notes already.
I will do that.
Thank you.
And I will send any feedback I have on the rest of them.
Yeah.
I'll send them to you.
Thank you.
Maybe we
And
should
what
put
I
that
love
in
is
reverse
your
too, like we have to
early
get our
morning.
stuff.
Earlier.
Yeah.
I dropped the ball.
Me too.
Yeah, we don't have a process even identified yet, so.
I have a couple more.
Yeah.
Under unbiased listening and recognition.
Yeah.
Just because I know you received a lot of questions about, well, what was the makeup, and did anybody, were anybody with attendees?
Yeah.
Something in there just about, you have, that it will reflect the participant statements accurately and all that, which is great, but maybe something in there about, maybe also collect, like, who's in the room? Is it a mixture of community and teachers? Is it mostly parents? Is it students? Who's in the room?
That makes sense.
You mean add it to that unbiased listening
Yeah.
and documentation?
And for the community engagement and outreach, I think that goes in there. I was maybe thinking of putting, I know we were really intentional this time around, making sure we hit every region.
Oh, yeah.
Putting something in there to make sure we hit every region.
To be real, I stumbled through this whole paragraph and would love if someone could rewrite it. Because I'm like, I am not wording this how I want to word it. But yes, every region, I think that's super important.
I have a few too. I think, well, the first question you asked me, I think that I would probably name it something different.
Okay.
Just so it says like goals and guardrails, like framework or something like that, just so I'm just thinking about accessibility if anybody's looking for it, they can find it.
Yep.
And then maybe listening to me can be part of that like subtitle.
Okay.
I love like the heart and the soul of that. So I wouldn't want to lose it, but I think the policy should be named something plain that people could like find in alphabetical order pretty quickly.
Yep.
I definitely agree with what I've heard so far. There was some little nitpicky, but like under board leadership, where it says community listening sessions shall be facilitated and led by the school board, I do think it's important to just put design as well.
Yeah.
Like, we're inherited a design from Council of Great City Schools, but we don't know if they're gonna, continue to be in the mix 5 years from now.
Yeah.
So I think the school board needs to know that no one's handed them a framework that they have to actually, I mean, they are with this, but they still have to design what it's gonna look like.
Right.
I think that under transparency on number 6, I know one of the questions that came up from community was like, how do we synthesize information? So I think that's something that if we were to do this again, I would want people to know up front, like, how do we synthesize? Are we using AI? Is it all like manual synthesis? Like, what are the tools used? I think, yeah, absolutely. That's really important.
I think I strayed away from that in case it needs to shift. But I think just adding like however we synthesize, we share that. That's what you're saying.
Exactly, yeah, not exactly, just that we share
Okay,
that process. I think some people are kind of like, wait, how are you getting all this information?
Yeah, that makes
My
sense.
question is, who's doing the synthesis? Are you using an external?
Yeah, source like we did.
consultant? Are
Yeah,
you doing the synthesizing?
that makes sense.
So we gotta figure that out.
Add that there.
I know that, Council of Great City Schools, gets a really good shout out with compliance, in the compliance section, but I think in the cross-reference section, I'm just thinking about attribution and proprietary things, like, I think it's dope we have a policy on this, but to be clear, like, this is their framework, they gave it to us. We borrowed it and we implemented it, we didn't come up with it, so, I'm just,
credited in there.
yeah, I'm just thinking during the cross-reference, maybe it's like they have like a link to their website or their work. And I think referencing the core beliefs that we'll go over so that people can see that this is a way that we manifest the core beliefs.
Yep.
But I think this is very spot on. I think we did a great job capturing what the process was, what it should feel like and be like. And yeah, I think just like directionally, it's like right where it needs to be, and like just maybe some fine tuning. But I
Just
think it makes a lot of sense.
consistency of, I'm sorry. I think we should use the word references throughout. It's not really a cross-reference. A cross-reference would be to another policy or something. We're really describing the references. I use the term legal. It could be legal or it could be non-legal, but we should sort of use that word.
So take cross out.
I was gonna say legal, but the Council of Great City Schools is not a legal reference, but it's a reference, so we're giving credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing I was just looking, very minor, but I think we should make sure that both the formatting is consistent from policy to policy, and then the terminology used, I think we should just use board or school board, but not go back and forth. We should capitalize district, but those are kind of end stage syntax clarity, but that would be important.
I have one more.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Under training,
Mhm.
you might have a little bit more in there about how we're in, like, so for example, is it every time you onboard a new member? Is it, right before you begin with the new process? Or is it more regular, because you're monitoring every year, you know, the process that came for 5 years? So, that how it is. Who's doing that? Are you having consequently, older school board members who've been through it?
That makes sense.
What about this documentation?
That's what I was just about to say. So I added that block because I know we had talked about how in the spirit of like archiving what we collect, but we didn't come up with like an official process or where that's gonna live.
Yeah.
And I know we created a Google Drive for all of our like listening session stuff that we have as a board. But like, how do we,
Yeah.
and that can be like a conversation about, maybe we can think offline and come back to this.
Yeah.
Maybe. But yeah, just wanted to put that in there because I do feel like just I learned this at ASU 20, like archiving work is super important, like for future.
Like where is it? Is that?
Like where will it live? Yeah,
Like an expectation too that it's done,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Like, well, like, cause you know how in like accounting or finance, you have to hold files for a certain number of
5 years,
time
yeah.
or whatever it is.
whatever
And
it is.
it's not, yeah, you know what I mean? And like, it's not always the same with community processes, but I think we're talking about like, we should have something like, how sad would it be if all the work we did, we archived everything, new people coming in, they're like, you know,
Yeah, like,
just like, nobody cares, like, no one documents or.
So you're talking about where the underlying, where the work is that you've already done, where is it held?
Well, when they come, when, say, 5 years from now, a new group comes in, how do they document, like, photos and stories and data, like, where is all of that held?
So you know, like where will it live?
So
Yeah.
is this, do we want this to say something like where and how long this information has to
I
be
think
kept?
that makes
Is
sense.
that kind of what we're saying?
There are records retention laws. I'm not sure what I'm not getting what you're.
I think you mean like,
I didn't even want to
Kind
look
of
at
in-
notes.
a repository of the historical journey that you've been on.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't think that we're talking about anything legal, just.
No,
Just a way to kind of memorialize.
In case
Yeah,
anybody
no,
wanted to
that-
go back and say, what did the first school board did? How did they do their notes? How did they go
Oh,
and like reference?
so is it a
everything?
link or something that we're referencing?
I think we're trying to talk about a policy saying that we have to keep that information.
It has to live somewhere.
And it has to live somewhere, like if when this process happens, it's on the board to keep it in a file or in a shared drive, and we have to keep it for at least 5 years.
It gets passed down to the next year or something like that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's down to the live.
So it's clear policy that like the next board that comes in, they have to keep our notes.
Yeah.
And like they don't have to reference them, but they have to keep them.
In my mind, it's so important because the community is entrusting us with their stories. You know what I mean? And so like we're kind of like keepers of stories, and that's a responsibility. Like
Yeah.
that's not something you just like lose. That's like losing your keys to a castle. Like, it's like no, like you keep those and we honor those. So how do we?
So maybe you
hold
just
those?
say all documents and data that inform the process must be retained in a
Google Drive.
in the school department,
Well, like, do you have, like, does the district, like, I still feel like the board should own, I don't know, should own where it lives, but again,
Do you all have a Google Drive or anything?
we have a shared Google Drive, but it was created, I think, from my personal email, which is not sustainable or
Okay.
even.
So what we can work on is, having the IT department create a Google Drive for you that like all of you can access. And then
And we can move it
or
over.
your archive stuff in there, and then as you get new members, you can add them to it.
Okay,
Because you all get a Providence email.
yeah,
You would just have to log in with that,
okay,
for it to work.
okay.
so we'd call it the board Google Drive or something.
I wonder if that should be a policy in and of its own, so that way it's not just with the, just this, it could be with anything else that we want to add to it.
Yeah, a lot of schools have that, we had that in Barrington where, they would be able to put in anything that they wanted to do, meeting, or access.
Yeah.
I think that is good. Okay, nice. I think, Angel, I know we have similar definitions after I read yours. I think we should align the definitions.
Yeah,
In
definitely.
language with, we could do that after.
Yep.
Just like what Sarah was saying for kind of continuity
Yep.
and cohesion.
The date created, that's at the end, I think.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
That goes, because that was on page 3, you're gonna do that, the history, it's like,
Under number 5, unbiased documentation, I want to take out attribution and editorialization. I just want to leave it at without interpretation. Does that make sense to people?
which one are you talking about?
Number 5, under, guidelines.
Oh.
The last 2 words, I feel like interpretation covers it, these 2 words. I don't know if they're necessary.
Oh, and the definition?
Yeah, not definition,
Oh.
under guidelines, number 5,
Oh,
the last 2 words,
Without attribution or editorial, so just without
just
interpretation.
leave it, does that feel okay for people? Or, okay, and then I think I had, Sarah, I had a question about,
So
number
there would
8.
never be a time when you take somebody's name from a pool or anything like that? They can't do that?
I'm sorry?
Would there ever be a time where you're like specifically quoting the person, saying that so-and-so?
We're not, I don't think we're supposed to.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because that's the attribution.
Yeah, that's why I said I don't think we should put that in there, because then in the confidentiality, it says we won't name people.
So then that,
So
which
it's a
was my
conflict.
question, so I would say without interpretation or attribution. I don't think you need it.
The last one?
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
redundant.
So you suggest leaving in attribution.
Okay. And then Sarah, this part, under respect and trust, I put, forces respect, social, emotional, physical, and spiritual safety. It's okay to say that, right? Like, I don't know, why in my head, I'm like, is that legal to say?
Oh, you mean because you use the word spiritual?
Yeah, I know people get weird about
That's
that, but I
fine.
think it's important
I
to
think it's
name
fine.
here.
It's not specific.
Yeah, okay.
You're just
It's
talking
not
about,
saying you must have spiritual safety.
You're saying if there is, we can, okay.
I'm not saying you have to believe in a God.
Yeah, okay. Okay, and then I think that was from my notes from my own. Yeah, the references part, I wasn't sure what to place there, but we're saying, the Council of Great City Schools kind of website link there, the core beliefs policy. If anyone can think of other policies that connect to this in any way, I can add that here also. And then I added this policy does that make sense? I know that's not on any, I added this block.
I have it on mine too, but I also was using this framework as well, but I had that. Right.
But I think it was super important to,
I don't think you need it.
no?
No.
Okay.
We can take it off.
I think,
I think where I was going with this was people may show up to the community listening sessions, air their grievances, and think that that's a space for them to be solved. And
well, then you just tell them it isn't.
Alright.
I mean,
No, that makes sense.
I mean,
I
it's,
just wanna
it's,
cover us.
it's okay.
Okay. Well, yeah, then and then under history, do I just put the, what do I put here? I put
We're
this,
just gonna say, adopted.
adopted,
It's the
the
first-
date that is adopted, like when it's adopted, okay.
Because if they may do,
You
in the
could
past, they
put a
do
first
first
reading.
draft, first reading, and then they put the dates
Oh,
adopted.
okay.
And they also have, the date was reviewed
Today.
First read and then adopted.
or revised.
Okay, okay.
Well, it hasn't happened yet. It's gotta be in front of the board.
Oh, this isn't the first read.
No. You're just drafting it. The
Okay.
first read is gonna be when the board looks at it for the first time.
Oh, so nothing is going here yet until the board.
You
decides.
can write first
Yeah, you can
read
leave it
with a
blank.
blank date and
Okay.
adopted with a blank date.
First read, got it. Okay, I'm good.
Thank you.
No, thank you, guys. I will fix it with that.
You can do core beliefs, absolutely. If y'all just wanna take a read through and then answer questions, go through any part.
So which one is next?
Core beliefs.
Oh, okay. So, just one question. This copy of the goals and guardrails, that's not for here, right? That's just included, but it's not, we're not talking about this. Okay.
Maybe just a little bit of framing in case anyone, is interested. The core beliefs, the, last revision of core beliefs was 2008. This is not, a tweak, this is like a total redesign on that, based on our goals and our guardrails. And so the core of that, the sentiment expressed in 2008, I still believe is fully like encompassed in here, but this is a new policy a new evolution of that policy.
So you use that to kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Are we ready to talk? Want me to kick off?
So one thing I'm a little confused about is that you use the word vision instead of goals.
Mhm.
And then there's no definition of goals. I think if we're gonna use the terminology that the council has imparted, we should use goals and describe goals as well. And I'm not sure what the vision, if that's a defined term or.
Well, vision is, we have a vision that we worked out with the goals and it's our framing for the goals and the guardrails. And so that's actually right here.
Maybe we need, oh, I see.
Yeah.
Guided by, okay.
You might want to ask a definition.
Of vision.
Yeah, because I thought that was goals, that was,
I had the same questions. A lot of my questions have the same foundation.
so if you're gonna use vision, I would define it, and I would certainly, if we're sort of using the goals and guardrails in the council language, we ought to use the word goals in here and define it, because you define guardrails.
Yeah.
Um,
outcome goal.
yeah, where is that?
Number 3.
You're right,
Because I think it's later on, like in the guidelines and things, where my questions were going into stars.
okay, so maybe I overlooked that. I mean, maybe we want to say, I mean, the goals are all student outcome almost by definition. So maybe we tweak that definition to say board adopted measurable student outcomes that function as strategic instead of defining it as a student outcome goal.
Okay.
That, I think that cures it for me. If you can then add vision as a definition, it would help. The other thing that I noticed, is in number 7, you describe outcomes shaped by race, disability. I think we ought to add gender and gender identity.
7 under which section? General beliefs.
Yeah,
General beliefs.
yeah. Or, I mean, that's a pretty big one. And I would say sex, gender, and I think gender identity is its own under state law. I mean, anti-racism is fine. I think if you want to highlight that, I think that's completely fair. I mean, you would want the practices to be antithetical to any of the systems of structural and historic oppression. I mean, I think it would be, I just think for gender should be in there, is my suggestion, and then
Can I clarify something, and maybe this will clear up, and I'm wondering if it's in like how I'm describing anti-racism, so it's not to say that racism is the pinnacle of all problems, even though I believe it is, but it is to say that anti-racism isn't just about, recognizing structural inequity, it's an active, practice and strategy to have a systems level approach to dismantling oppressions,
right.
that then leads to the dismantling of other oppressions. And it's a framework. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but
So
I'm not
wondering-
taking issue with that.
Yeah.
I'm completely all in and familiar. I just think there's anti-sexism practices too. There's every sort of vector of disadvantage has a concomitant method of pushing back on it.
Yeah.
And that is, what is true of anti-racism is also true of anti-sexism. It's, intentional practices to reimagine how work is allocated, how domestic labor is divided. There's sort of that practice of being intentional to dismantle structures of oppression is a common theme in I'm struggling with the words, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, I think it's just, I think in the case of the shaped by race, I would just add gender, and then I don't think I have any other concerns around that except, I think those were my main things. I also don't think you need to add that it doesn't supersede any collective art. I just, don't worry about it.
Which part is that?
This policy does not.
Oh,
We're overachievers.
Yeah, no, I get that, but, I really liked your description of confidentiality. It's not about so much the law, it's about the respect. I thought that was really great. In the end, you say Title VI and related I just think you should say all anti-discrimination laws. And just,
Question, yeah.
there's so many.
Thank you.
I'm done.
Under implementation strategy, the first bullet, um, I'm just a little bit confused on some of the language between beliefs and goals, because when we did the council work, it was aligning strategies and initiatives and resources and goals. Right here it says beliefs. So I'm not sure if you mean aligning the strategies, initiatives, and resource allocation within the goals to these beliefs.
That's a good question. I think, well, it says beliefs because it's the core beliefs policy. And the way that I see it is that the goals and the guardrails are an expression of these beliefs.
So
And
maybe
so-
tweak it so that it's like, the, that the, because if you have, it's gonna be very difficult to measure and quantify.
Yeah.
If we're trying to do it to beliefs and goals, but if you are able to say, aligning district strategies, initiatives, and resource allocation within the goals to these beliefs.
Within the goals to these beliefs. I totally hear what you're saying. So it's saying, yeah. But is that kind of limiting to like making sure that the core beliefs in its expanse are properly acknowledged and resourced, even if they're not the 5 specific goals? Do you know what I mean? It might not be the active thing of measuring,
It
but
might be another bullet in reading about goals, because these are the exact things that council called us, called out in the goals and guidelines, our strategies, initiatives, and resource allocation, so that's the exact language from that.
Yeah.
So maybe if it's just a reframing of that bullet.
Yeah, and I also think student outcomes should be crossed out, so it should align to the board's vision, goals, and guardrails.
which part are you on, sorry?
It, just above where Paula was describing,
Oh, board's vision, goals, and guardrails?
yeah, I don't,
Yeah. And then, Paul, you're saying we either rework or add a bullet that is specifically about resourcing the goals.
So that the beliefs and the goals are aligned, because
Yeah,
right now it looks like it's kind of two separate things.
yeah.
Just the way it's framed there.
Yep.
And then my other question is right underneath it, under training, oversight, and communication. I appreciate that you called out these types of professional development. However, if you look at the beliefs that you outlined, there are many other areas that would require professional development, so, I'm just wondering about that, because we talked the other night about how professional development needs to be the priority in the district, and we don't have the kind of resources. And so to me, it would be just important that in addition to these, like not taking them off, but in addition to these, any of the things on here, such as, being able to have this, for contribution to diverse, and, having
Like
pathways.
post-secondary?
Yeah, so like that requires professional development too.
Yep.
And I would just worry that if somebody interpreted this as, these are the only areas that,
Gotcha.
does that make sense?
Yes, it does, yeah.
you might say the district shall include in its professional development. I mean,
And I would reference back, and any related professional development to the goals outlined.
Yeah. Because we don't have to list them all off, right?
Right,
You like, yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
I just worry about
Yeah.
interpreting with that, or you have to do that, you would actually have to spend money on other things.
Yeah.
You know, you might need to do that in order to hit your goals.
That makes sense, yep.
Also, maybe the word in that same, in the second bullet, instead of saying progress toward outcomes, progress towards goals
Okay.
and adherence, with adherence to guardrails.
With my notes were more on how you structured the policy. Cause reading through it, I was like, trying to figure out like the flow of the policy, and then I realized, okay, these are the general beliefs that we're reading. But then we go through purpose, and then then there's like definitions, but then how you implement it. So I feel like the kind of what we were talking about with each having purpose and scope in the beginning before general beliefs, so that way I know like, oh, okay, this is what we're talking about in this. And then instead of general beliefs, I think we should name that part core beliefs. So we know, because you know how like other policies have general beliefs on it?
Yeah.
Like it should just be the core beliefs. That's what it should be named. So we know that it's not just a general belief.
So you would put purpose and scope first?
First.
Is that consistent with what Dr. Onye has though? That's the only thing.
Dr. Onye order.
So,
I mean, I feel like we can change it. Doesn't-
I think because they both have beliefs in them, that might be good, right? So the general beliefs is usually just a little statement.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
And then you have another section that has
The actual
the
beliefs.
actual beliefs.
So, okay, that makes sense. So general belief should be a blurb about what you're about to read.
Yeah.
And then would I then put the beliefs right under that blurb or do it different? Yeah,
No.
this is the template
Purpose
that.
and scope.
I would,
Yeah, it would
I
be
would
purpose
start
and
off with a, like, try to track this, as Paula said, the general beliefs should be not the core beliefs, but the Providence School Board believes that core
Like a
core
summary.
beliefs shall guide decision-making and governance, period. The purpose and scope of this policy is to identify or name or identify the beliefs that will guide.
So I feel like it takes away from the of core beliefs, because.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Then I think that's a great point. Then your general beliefs are really the kind of meat of your policy, like I know we do a lot of definitions. I'm not a big fan of all the definitions in the policies, but I'm not gonna,
Gotta bring unity along, Sarah.
but, yeah,
I'm sorry,
I didn't put definitions, but
Real quick, wait, so where do I put, again, I know you all said this, but I kind of forgot. So the actual beliefs themselves, where did they go? Do they go under purpose and scope?
yes.
Oh, okay.
So you
Like
start out with
after.
a
Oh, I see
general,
what
general
you're talking
belief is like 2 lines.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then you do purpose and scope.
Like, we believe this is going to
yeah,
guide the work or whatever.
yeah.
This
And
is the
then-
purpose of
And then
this,
the core
and now this
beliefs
is
are your core beliefs.
Yep.
Then you give this.
So I feel like it gets lost because every policy starts with general beliefs. So
Yeah,
people
yeah.
will know this is what the core beliefs.
So would her core beliefs have their own block?
Yeah, I would say
Oh,
have their own block.
Okay, that makes sense.
Got
Yeah, yeah, okay.
And then my other question was like, I know these are the template Dr. Omi made, but I feel like some of the wording of these blocks make it a little confusing of like what this is. So like I know we have our core beliefs, and like what do we want this core belief to do? So we have guidelines, and we also have like implementation of strategy. Is that like one thing? Like why was there a separation in guidelines and implementation? Is there a purpose of why that was like separated like that? Because
Not necessarily, I mean, it's just kind of working with the template that we have. I think the guidelines are a little bit more general, like bumpers, and then the implementation strategy is like a little bit more directed to the superintendent. Not that it has to stay that way, but yeah, like I know there's an effort to try to align all the policies in a similar way.
And some of them will have like 1 or 2 things in a row.
Yeah.
like maybe in our guidelines, I'm thinking just in general what the template, like we can put in here what you had added of like why this is a compliance with our goals. Because our guidelines should be the guidelines that we created.
Yeah.
And our goals and guardrails.
Mhm.
So I think that should be added to that, so it's more like it flows, like this is guiding, how it's implemented, training, you don't have this section, confidentiality.
What's that section called?
This is
We wanna
the
rework the
the
guidelines.
compliance with student outcomes focused governance should be our guideline.
Got you.
But I love the core beliefs. I was reading how it mirrored like are different from what after 2008. And it's way more community focused, and I feel like it encompasses more of what we heard in our listening sessions. So like this was talking about succeeding in college and high school, and they're like, no, people wanted to talk about not just college. We wanted to talk about trades, arts. I think over here we had closing the achievement gap. There's like certain things, but this talks more of a holistic, which I feel like it mirrors because kind of what we're talking about in these core beliefs we have in our goals, so we don't have to talk about this. This is more overarching with everything. So
Yeah.
you know, I love what you did.
Appreciate it. No, it definitely like, everything here is not necessarily my own preference, so it aligns to it, but it all comes from what we heard from the listening sessions, the goals, the guardrails, and the vision. I think one of the biggest shifts in how this policy is written is it moves from, focus on individuals to systems. It reframes the systems accountability, which is what the vision does. And then also, yeah, calling out specific. I mean, back to your point, Sarah, I agree with you. I think anti-racism and race, that just came up so much. That's what's very important. It's the majority of what we heard.
It's fine, I just,
Yeah.
I guess I'm just gonna throw a little gasoline on the fire
You
here.
know what you're gonna say.
Well, I appreciate that there's a template. I get that, and we want to be consistent, but I feel like some of, like, the guidelines, I feel like it's repetitious.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes it takes away from the power of what you're trying to say if you have too much layering. Like, to me, and this is the first time I've read it, I think your core beliefs are great. I think that's a nice statement of what you want to have in a hopeful way inform the district. But I'm not sure you need all these definitions. And I'm not sure you need the guidelines, because what you're really saying is the superintendent is responsible for implementing this policy by ensuring that the practices are carrying out these core beliefs, the goals, the guardrails, and the vision. And I'm just like, do you really need another definition of student outcome goals? Or maybe you can condense the guidelines with the implementation, because really what you're doing is saying, these are the beliefs that this board carries as paramount, and we want the district to follow them. And I feel like it's said
3 times.
too much.
Yeah, and this policy in specific is a little silly, in that the whole thing's about, the whole thing's a guideline, in a way.
You're taking, it's basically a aspirational statement about where you as a group of people are placing, you've done a ton of work getting community values into the rubric that AJ has established. And these principles are in there in places, but not completely, because it doesn't speak about anti-racism, it doesn't speak about, and those are really important to this board. And I'm not in any way saying you shouldn't articulate that. I just feel like there's a way to do it that makes like, these principles that are really at the center of your speech, the center of the show. And then I feel like the definitions, like, that is, I'm just gonna disagree with Dr. Anye. I think some of these terms, we're not talking about complicated terminology. I think,
It's bleeding into other things that you're passing to your goals and guardrails document. It's bleeding a little bit into that and, like literacy and numeracy and mobile pathways. I don't think we need necessarily.
Yeah.
For example, and that, I think what you want for a policy is people to read it and walk away with a clear understanding. But when you have something that's 6 pages long,
it's also, you're saying the same thing in different places, like whole child development. Well, you've really said here, we believe learning is holistic. Academic growth, literacy, numeracy, social development are interconnected and mutually reinforcing. So that's kind of the same idea as well-being, social, I just don't think that these definitions really add anything to the core beliefs. They, almost without exception.
I think they're meant to bring community along so they can read this and like know what it means. I agree with you in that I don't personally think definitions need to be a part of every policy, but I do think they should live somewhere. And so maybe it's a conversation with Dr. Onye and team about like, are there shared definitions that like I'm just thinking about like a webpage where all the policies are. Like, is there just like a glossary to like read any of the policies?
Usually, so in my experience, you define terms, the purpose of a definition is to define a term that you're then going to use in a discussion. So, okay, when I use the term restorative practices in this document, this is what it means.
Yeah.
But the oddity of this template is that the definitions tend to follow the discussion and not necessarily get used in them. Sometimes they do, and I'm being a little general, but but here, what is the center of this policy? The center of this policy is the articulation of the core beliefs. They're a little different, I think, from goals and guardrails because they're speaking a little more broadly. There's some overlap, but they don't use the definitions that you then set forth. So we don't need them.
yeah, for example, you have multiple pathways as a definition, but it's not in the core beliefs.
That's probably because I edited it out. I honestly have way more beliefs than this.
Oh, no, you do. You have the idea. You have the idea.
Yeah.
You just don't have that.
The word, yeah. So some of this could just get edited out. Like stuff that doesn't appear in the document, it could just like go. That's no problem. Like when I promised you, this was like 20 pages at one point. It's kind of ridiculous. So I have no issue with that. I agree with you. I think that it's a larger discussion about like template format for policies in general. So it's like, if we're gonna have definitions, then I think we should figure out which ones make sense to keep. And then if we wanna have a discussion about, do we get rid of definitions and just have one on our webpage?
Just integrate it into the discussion here. You have, we believe equity requires intentional action. Then say, equity is the intentional allocation of resources, opportunities, and supports based on need and impact to eliminate disparities in outcome. You're
You're
saying,
saying put them with the beliefs?
yeah, that's where you're talking about equity. So,
Instead of standalone.
yeah,
Yeah,
rewrite 7 to integrate your definition of equity. It's really part of your core beliefs. You don't talk about restorative practices at all as a core belief. I mean,
It's in there.
Number 8.
oh, you're right, okay, then integrate it there. That's what I think you take the definitions and you just meld them into this statement of core beliefs.
It's number 7.
Does it matter? I hear what you're saying, Sarah. I think for this specific policy that works, but how does that work for like niches, goals and guardrails kind of thing? Like this one is a special policy in that it is kind of a declaration of ideas and it's not describing a process or something like that. So I think that this works what we're saying. I'm just wondering, are we okay with the template shifting for this one? And it might not shift in the same way for other ones, I guess is what I'm saying.
I mean,
Is this the template? Cause that just, I feel like this template works for some, but I don't know if it works for all the policies.
This is the one that I do not would say, that's what,
So,
this is the one
but I
got
think-
it off.
I think this is an important piece for you all to decide, right? We're doing, rules and regulations for what used to be policy, and you're doing board policies. We're distinguishing them as two separate things. So I think it's up to you to decide, do you want to use our rules and regulations of it? Or do you want a school board?
Make our own kind of thing.
Yeah, so I think what I'm hearing you say is that you're trying to fit what you want to say into these boxes, but maybe these boxes are the right boxes in the school board.
I agree.
Yeah, I thought we had to, I'm not gonna lie.
We did.
I thought we had to.
No.
Because we had a
no
conversation a
guidance.
couple of months ago, and I remember, and it's not to put it on Dr. Onye, but I remember her great weeks talking
Yeah.
to us about the like, push to have things look similar.
Yeah.
So people could follow it and stuff,
Yeah.
and so I think we just assumed so that we have
I
to
would
use it.
think school board policy should look the same,
Mhm.
and rules and regulations should look the same.
We're not
They
gonna
have
use
to be
work
the same.
regulations, please.
Or- I don't like that either, but whatever those are, whatever.
Rules and
those-
protocols.
Rules and protocols,
Yeah.
whatever, those should look the same, so yes, everyone can follow rules and all that, but yours kind of, called, this is your work.
Okay.
I think
There are certain pieces that have to be here, so like if you're referencing a law,
Yeah.
or if you're, referencing another policy, right, there are certain components you have to have, but then you have flexibility in other places, as guided by your legal counsel.
Yeah, this looked a lot cuter before I put it in the boxes, I'm not gonna lie. So-
I just
I'm
think
okay with it.
I think we need to ask why we have this, like, as a lawyer who used to edit my work would say, and I would say things the way you do, too many words.
Yeah, yeah.
And I feel like the definitions are just,
You can't find the policy,
Yeah,
what?
you can't find the policy.
Right, like, what are you saying here?
yeah, yeah.
And I think if you take the core of what you are trying to say, it's the first page.
Yeah.
Where you lay out, and I think one way to think about reframing this is to take the definitions. I don't have any problem with the purpose and scope, I think that helps center people, it gives you like, okay, what is this policy? And it should be short and to the point. And then tell us what you're talking, tell us what you care about in the next section, whatever the meat is. I wouldn't worry so much about implementation and strategy, because that's really gonna be up to this, I mean, you're gonna be telling the superintendent, giving them a lot of work to implement. We can think about implementation as a separate section, but I think this could be 2 or 3 pages.
I mean, what the 2008 version does, which I kind of like, is that they do their belief in the commitment, and then below it, they kind of have like a general implementation of how this belief should
Yeah, I
be.
mean, I think you can say aligning district strategies, initiatives, but this is where Paula is pointing out, your terminology is getting really mushy because you've got goals and guardrails, which the superintendent is specifically tasked with implementing in a very particular way. And so then the reader is like, well, is this different from the goals and guardrails? Are these, how does this really work? you know, I don't know. I mean, I'm a little on the fence about that part of it, but I definitely think that the definitions section can be woven into your core beliefs, and then it will be more lean and a lot, and you might not need literacy and numeracy and, you know, continuous improvement. I mean, you know, it's okay to leave stuff out. Not everything has to be here.
Maybe in the, where you have in the guidelines, maybe we can put that in purpose and scope. Because I like this idea of like, yes, the goals do inform what the district's doing, but this is also supposed to inform what the district is doing. So I think that should be set aside.
Yeah, I'm not.
'Cause then what's the
I pull
point of
back.
having-
I pull back from that, but I think this could be shortened and made punchier, and then really pick what you want to say about implementation. Like, we want the superintendent to make sure that everything, that these core beliefs are respected. It may be in a student conduct policy. It may be it'll be in all the work administering the district, the budget, how you punish students, how you hold them accountable. It's all gonna be, it'll be a little bit of an additional reference point, but I think you could probably like condense implementation and training into one box. And I like confidentiality, but that's just, you know. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I'm happy to help however you want me to. If you want me to take a crack at it, if you want to do it, I edited down my own stuff brutally over
Yeah.
time.
No, I'm okay with the editing. I think just having agreed upon like flow for what we're trying to do is gonna be helpful because it could look an infinite number of ways. I think that just coming to some type of consensus around, all right, what do we want it to
Well,
the shape?
the policy I drafted doesn't have any definitions, so we'll see how that.
Okay. No, this is helpful. Thank you. Yeah, I feel like I have enough direction on where to go. If there's anything else, just let me know.
It's strong, I think it's just a process in terms of you all determining what you want to leave it out. So it's like, with the language on it.
But I do agree with Dr. Anya that it should have the same, it should be, the template should be repetitive, so that you get used to reading it and then redundant.
This is Sarah's school board housing process.
By the way, this was Tyrell's draft that I worked over. It wasn't mine.
This is like a
What's too lean?
I have questions. I'm sure you're surprised.
You bet.
I said I have questions, I'm sure you're surprised.
No, go ahead.
Um,
I'm not
first,
sure I can answer them. It's really for the group here.
yeah, first page, it says that new policies and appeals, may be proposed by the individual board member or the superintendent. But can't this committee also propose, so we're going to add that then?
I think it is added. I was reading it. It says that the policy committee,
Look at the first page.
yeah, it says that, but then on the bottom it says, like after, I think the policy after it says, the policy committee could also do this without going through. For me, it's that whole first paragraph. We're saying,
What do you see? Is it in that same
Says
policy?
it- so right here, yeah, it says, in addition to referrals for policy development by the board, the policy committee itself may initiate development or amendment of board policies. So we can still do it, but it's saying that if a board member wants to do it by themselves,
I
they would
think
have to
it's
go.
like too far away from each other, so why not?
So
just
maybe
there,
bring it together.
Yeah,
Well,
because,
my question is, why are we adding this whole extra process?
Which process?
For, so if an individual board member wants to add a policy, I feel like before they would just come to the policy committee, we would vet it, we would talk to them, and then we bring it to the board. Why are we adding an extra step of bringing it into the board, they have to vote on it, bringing it to policy, policies go back to the board? That's my question. Why is it added later?
So I was trying to bring together what was in the draft that Tyrell had done, and it sounded to me like there were multiple pathways to bringing a policy before the board. One was a board member wants to do it, another is the superintendent, and the third is the policy committee itself. So I think, Paula, your suggestion is that you delineate that in one spot
one spot.
is a good idea. And so maybe what we say is a board member, I agree with you on the process. Maybe the answer would be that we simplify it and say a board member, the superintendent, or the policy committee itself can generate discussion of a new policy. Like if the superintendent wants to bring a policy to the board, they'd have to go to the policy committee. So everything has to be put in front of the policy committee first, and we don't need a board process
Yeah,
to send it
Cause I
back.
feel like it's gonna, once it comes to us, it's gonna go to the full
Right.
board anyways. So if they don't want to do that policy, they can vote it down.
Got it. Okay, so I think that's a great point. So that new policies or revisions have to go to the policy committee.
And the other thing that I didn't see, noted in here, which happens, for example, if the legislation creates, a policy that the school board has to adopt as a
Right.
school board, I don't see that in there either, because, that's not a recommendation that can, the board can vote on. It has to policy, you have to create the policy and it has to go ahead
Right.
and approve them,
So that would be the task of the policy committee to monitor and initiate new policies as required by law.
I have a question about who can suggest policy, like, I think all of those people should be able to do that in entities, but like, what about like communities, like, where do they have voice in proposing, policy, if at all? And I don't really know how this works in other spaces, but like, how do like community members like get people to sponsor like legislation and stuff? Like, is there anything that we can think about here that would allow the community to have the same policies we have?
Yeah, like what they have to have, like a board member sponsor.
Right. Yeah.
What could they bring?
Well, that kind of raises I mean, if you're gonna do everything through the policy committee, which is this body here, then I would say that if you wanted to, and that's itself a decision to make, you could create an opportunity for a member of the community to propose a policy to the policy committee. But I think there should be, it has to kind of get through.
Yeah, we
Guys.
spoke about that. There was like, I think we had this conversation in the beginning that we wanted community to be able to bring it, but not just any policy. Like, they would have to bring a policy that, like, there was like,
Research.
there was research behind it. There has to be like, they have to have like probably signatures or something by certain people, and then they can come and present it to us. We can look through it, just so that, like Angel's saying, there's an avenue for someone to come and present.
I mean, it is not the practice in any school district that I'm familiar with that members of the community can suggest policies. And let me just throw this at you a little bit, push back. You're really governing as representatives of the community, and you are their people. It's not a direct democracy here. It's not like a town hall where people can come in and vote and say, I want this budget. Everybody in the community, that's like old Greek style. You go into the forum, you raise your hand, and this is what you want. You are the reps. And so I would argue that you should maintain communication with the community, you should be transparent with the community, and you are the ones who should be proposing policies on behalf of the community. It's a representative democracy here, and I don't think it is practical or even consistent with the governance structure to introduce community proposals for legislation. I mean, if you go to the General Assembly, you have to have a legislator sponsor a piece of legislation. You don't get to go into the General Assembly and say, I want this law.
So can we do something like that? Because I do think, this is a personal.
Like something like what, having,
Like having a board member like sponsor, like a sponsor, like, but, and maybe this is like a little bit outside of this policy, but I do think it should be mentioned here. Like, personally, I think we need to change that structure. Like, once people are elected or appointed into positional, positions, like, as much as we like to think that we're still just like the community, we're not. Like, we have access to power in a different way. And we can become taxed very quickly. And so I do think like people having access to this and being able to like present in a way that might be like not anywhere else might be a good thing for us.
but how would, so we were just talking about how the superintendent could recommend a policy, a board member could recommend a policy, and the policy committee itself could recommend a policy. Are you saying that maybe we would have, you know, a board member could recommend a policy that the board member or a constituent believes is useful? Could it? Could
Like
we-
on behalf of a community group or person, initiative or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be woven into, but it should be one of the board members.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Okay.
But just like, an accessible process the community knows is like a path that they can take to get their ideas formally in front of us.
I have a question, and I don't know how you guys would feel about this, but it's like, so in my head, essentially what would happen is that people would come present their policy here, and we would be the ones who decide if we're going to present, like we would sponsor the policy.
Yeah.
But that this space be a space open for community members to come and present a policy to us. But I just don't know if we want to be the ones deciding what policy we choose to take. Like, is that something that we want to take
You've
on?
got your 5 things here, they all fall under that, and it's not a good policy, right?
Yeah, that's really cool. That 'cause in my head, I'm thinking,
I
what if
think,
someone comes in
I-
and is like,
I'm-
I want a uniform policy and I want a whatever
Is
policy.
the school board oversee that, is that something that the school board oversees, or is that something the superintendent is interpreting? Right, so you have to always remember that
These five.
the public might be asking you for a million policies. But then you have to ask yourself the question, is that something that the school board is directly responsible for, and does it fall into these 5 categories?
I was not in, I mean, I hear what you're saying. That's a very different proposal from having a member of the community come to you and say, I think this is a good policy. And then you, as the representative, decide whether to present it to the policy committee.
Yeah.
I think you do have some, I'm not saying it's, but I think you have an obligation not to present policies that are off track.
Yeah.
And to act as a gatekeeper and as a filter. And as Paula just said, if the policy is not legally required, not, for whatever reason, in your representative judgment doesn't make sense, I think it would be your responsibility to say, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
And so I think if you wanna broaden it, not that they come here and make a pitch, they go to you.
Yeah.
As the representative, and you have to filter it and put your stamp of approval on it and say, okay, this is worth pursuing and here's why. And I think that makes sense to integrate into the policy, but I don't think you should turn this into a community forum for just new policies.
Yeah, no, I think that like sponsored policies by board members is like a way to think about it for sure. And personally, it's like, I want us to get away from just like endless resolutions. Just go, you know what I mean? Like as a board, like resolutions are important, but I think sometimes folks do resolutions because they don't know what else they can do to enact change, like within the system.
Yeah, but, okay, but
Yeah.
policies are very limited as
Yeah.
well as resolutions. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, you've heard AJ talk. It's really like, the whole idea is to diet and lose weight, not create.
Yeah,
Your fat
and that's
cells.
why I think having even the process we're going through, like, you can't just throw this stuff together. You know what I mean? For it to actually like get through us and then go through a board,
Yeah.
like it would actually,
It's a gatekeeper. But
yeah,
I can certainly redraft this to make it really explicit that policies can come from those 3 places and add the legally required. That's really important. Yes,
On the board?
can you just talk about it? I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
sorry.
Losing my hearing.
Under policy adoption,
Yes.
2 things. One is kind of technical. So policies, we have the record of adoption, date, revision history, and effective date. We need an archive date if it's archived. And then the one that's a question, it says that sole discretion of the school board,
Where are you reading?
same section.
Okay.
It will be determined by the board at its sole discretion. But I would think that emergency policies, it might be in collaboration with a superintendent at times, because the superintendent is likely to be bringing forth something that
It's
is
urgent.
urgent and an emergency, and I don't know that it would always be the sole discretion of the school board, but in collaboration with the superintendent.
You good with that? I think that's a good idea. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Under policy monitoring, just a,
I copied this, I don't fully understand it.
okay,
I
I have
don't,
lots of questions.
I don't
on this
understand
section.
it at all. And I
And it's
highlighted,
repetitive too.
I just copied, I just left the language. I don't know where, if Tyrell's watching, you'll forgive me. You saw I put this entire section, I don't understand it.
Okay,
So,
same page.
I just feel like if there's gonna be policy monitoring, we need to go back and look at what AJ said about it. He had a whole, I didn't reread it. There might be a succinct way of saying the board should, I think he said something like once a year, or when, you should check in to see how your policy is doing. But this language is not
Yeah.
final.
Okay, perfect. So we're gonna work on that.
We're gonna either cut it out or condense it or do something.
Again, the bottom paragraph, if it does get rewritten, it says the board retains sole authority over policy. But there are some that are legally required, and the board does not have full authority over. So I just want to make sure we're calling out that if we're keeping any of this.
Yeah, as I said,
Okay.
I just,
Next page, I have a question.
Yeah.
So I think I'm a little bit confused on the rules and protocols. This feels a little bit like the board is actually in control of the rules and protocols. And I'm just a little confused, because sometimes like we're writing a standard operating procedure versus a rule and protocol for the example, how the student registers, or how we're sending out notifications to families, and the process that we're using for communication. This feels like it's getting a little bit too much into the weeds if we have to keep coming back here for those types of things. So there's certain kinds of rules and protocols that we would like to be a part of. But this feels like the way it's written would be every single rule and protocol.
well, I think part of it, the problem is we're not really talking about specifics here. It's very general. So in the original proposal, which went to the board, there's just a boatload of stuff that we're offloading. And the offloading, in some areas, the board won't care to check in on the delegation. In some areas, I could see that the board would want to have reports as to how things are going. I'm trying to give you an example. Let's take code of conduct implementation. Like, that's going to be implemented by the administration, but the board may want to know, how's it going? How are the restorative practices going? How are the,
Oh, and I think it's totally reasonable to do a report. The way this was written, it feels,
so tell me what language feels like the board's,
okay, so,
board should retain oversight by conducting a review on an annual basis or at some other
which
interval.
is perfectly fine. I didn't have
at which the superintendent shall make a report, the board may direct that the report shall address in a specific area or generally, so that it wouldn't necessarily be every single rule all the time.
So how would we know? I guess that's where I'm confused, and then the
Well, it shall
superintendent may
address-
revise or rescind. But it doesn't say develop, so it just says revise or rescind.
Where are you reading?
On that page,
The
where it
last-
says the
the third paragraph.
superintendent is the first.
So the second to the last paragraph says, the board may direct that the report shall address
No, the superintendent may revise or rescind.
certain rules, protocols as warranted without reporting to or involvement by the board.
But it doesn't say develop, and it certainly doesn't say, like, so under this, the way that this currently reads, it would be like, okay, we're gonna do, a standard operating procedure on how employees are, logging in and tracking their time. So, under the way that I'm reading this, we would have to come to the school board, kind of get permission for that, and if we wanted to change it, we have to come back.
I'm a little, okay.
I think that the difference between, and maybe it's just like a naming thing, but board policy is what we own, and then, what we call it, protocols, rules and protocols, or like the other policies that are delegated. To me, SOPs are not a part of that, right?
Then we shouldn't call them protocols, because that's what we call them, like, so maybe we need to change the name. That
Is it
literally like
regulation?
the day-to-day stuff,
Yeah,
it's not a regulation, the day-to-day operations that we put in protocols, so we're all doing it the same way, and it's consistent across employee and schools, we call them protocols.
right. Well, I guess what I mean is, should we change what we're calling, what you all own that we would want to monitor,
So
rules
do
and
you
regulations?
standard operating protocols, is that not this?
I was envisioning, or I thought the group was envisioning, based on the council's, advice, and I'm gonna just try to find the actual document that captured it. Just a lot of policies that we decided the board was not going to own, that were going to be pushed down.
Yeah, what we were calling policies
They
before.
were called policies,
Yeah.
they were never called standard operating procedures. They were, there was a list on so here they are. There was student incident communication was a policy that we,
Yeah, see, like that one, like that is our standard operating, I don't know why it's not called out there.
but that was a policy.
Yes, I understand. But this is, so I'm trying to explain where my confusion is coming in.
Yeah,
Because I don't even know why that was a policy, like it wouldn't be a policy in any other place, it's a student
Right.
operating procedure. When there's a student incident, these are the people we have to notify in this order, and this is how we do it.
So in a way, what we're doing is getting rid of policies that really weren't operating as policies, but were operating as, another one is, grading, multi-tiered system of, these were all policies.
100%, I totally agree with you, and I'm on the same page with you. I guess where I'm struggling to understand is which of these things are we able to write, revise, or rescind without coming to the school? board?
All of it.
All of it we're able to write.
Yeah, and that was the intent of
It
this.
doesn't read that way.
Okay, so let's clarify that. So the way, by delegating, the board grants to the superintendent the responsibility to develop and implement written rules, standards, protocols, and procedures to provide operational and administrative direction. They shall be designated,
Oh, that makes sense. Keep going now.
okay,
It's the next paragraph, which seems to be in conflict with that previous paragraph.
The other point I want to
So
make
maybe
about
it
this,
just needs-
Sarah, is that we wanted to do a whole policy about delegation to the superintendent, which is what I had a note in here of taking this out, and that was on Tyrell's list of creating a whole policy explaining what are we what what are we describing as policies that are delegated, how, like, all of this.
Right, and I think,
So do we need it to live in our policy process?
Yeah, it does.
I
Policy
absolutely
process.
think it does. I think this is where it goes, and I think what Paula is describing is ambiguity around what's being delegated. And okay, so,
And you see how the two
yeah,
paragraphs.
so it looks
I
like
was
I'm
Okay,
talking,
I get this, and then I read the next paragraph, and
Okay.
I'm like, okay, no, I don't.
so I think what needs to be, I'm gonna get back to what you were saying, but what I think needs to be clear is by delegating, the board grants to the superintendent the responsibility, blah, 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 including to revise and rescind without board involvement. Point number one. Point number two is oversight by the board,
At the annual review or some other process.
oversight by the board through a report to be and this is all subject to your decision-making now, but I think what Paula has identified is to make clear what this is meaning to say, because I
Yeah.
didn't say it clearly.
Yeah.
So I think the idea is to take a certain bunch of stuff, let's just call it a bunch of stuff, and give it to the superintendent, and he or she writes, revises, implements,
And reports out.
and does all the drafting and implementation without board involvement.
And that's where,
So
to me,
once,
core beliefs are there to be as well.
right,
Yes.
so once delegated, it's all yours. The only thing that, and it doesn't have to be everything, it can be report on X, report on Y once a year, or some other time period. Maybe you wanna do it, there's something concerning about something and you wanna hear it so I do think this has to live together because they're kind of intertwined, that like what's a policy and what's a rule should be explained in the same, I think.
I mean, I think it could be explained, but I think this other part of like, how you do reports, what do you do with those policies, all of that stuff. I mean, if we're gonna have a delegation to the superintendent policy, what's the point of having two of those?
But what would a delegation to the
Well,
superintendent?
That
what
was
would
just
it
what was recommended, so I'm like, we could scrap that one, but I know that was, I think, the list that Tyrell said he had created with you. So if we're scrapping that one, we scrap that one.
Well, instead of saying scrapping it, maybe what we should think about is how that could be integrated into this, or how the delegation principles can be made.
Yeah, for example, in the core policies, you have outlined what's delegated to the superintendent. So I don't think you need a standalone. I think it should be within whatever it is, so that it's very specific to that thing.
And what we're saying in this, I'm sorry, I'm trying to follow on with what you guys are saying, is that, so we want one paragraph that talks about what exactly is a rule. I'm not calling it protocols.
You could call it rules, standards, protocols, and procedures.
Okay, so we are still calling it protocols. And then the next is how we overseeing these.
Yeah.
And then finally, this last paragraph is talking about the development of new rules and protocols.
Through the committee.
Yes, I have a question about that. I think the way that we're thinking about this work, like we have a parent advisory committee, we have a district advisory committee, we have a student advisory committee, we have an equity advisory committee, and I think we're thinking of not creating a new advisory committee, but once we do work internally, is sharing across those advisory committees. And so it's a little bit of a different structure than what is presented here.
I mean, using the existing committees to,
Yeah, but not in the way that it's structured
Yeah,
here.
it's structured a little.
It's not,
different,
right,
that's all.
right. So we are doing an internal group that is mostly staff with the intent of then we share it out with the teacher.
I see, you're saying like, if you're talking
Teacher
about
cabinet.
HR policies, you bring in staff. That's what you're talking about, student conduct, you bring in students. So each,
So it's not, right.
So we have the policy working group, right?
yes, I get it, I get it.
They're working with the other groups that are impacted or involved
I
in that.
totally, okay.
And it's a little bit of a different structure than what's outlined here
Got it.
as creating a new advisory.
So maybe it should say the superintendent shall draw upon existing advisory bodies.
We do have a policy working group, so in collaboration with the policy working group, they will, so we have a standing group, but it's not just solely them. So that group was like, okay, we need to do an SOP on registration. So then we're bringing in members of the registration team to advise in that.
So you have like an administrative internal group that then draws upon
That's
other people.
Yeah.
So how should it be phrased to capture what you're doing? It shall draw upon the existing policy working group.
Well, it's the superintendent's policy working group that grows on the advisory of all these groups that you had listed here, as needed.
Maybe like consults.
Consults with.
Yeah.
That draws upon advisory groups.
Mhm.
Or input.
And then my question is, the last sentence is reference when the superintendent makes a report to the board. Is it like the report, is there a specific report that they're making to us? Is it an annual report, when we ask for a report? Or is it?
We were talking about the report in that second paragraph.
It's in the last sentence too.
They're gonna keep the meeting minutes from this development and then they're gonna report to the board. But the language in that last one just says like, when they make a report.
Their report, it's the capital R report. It's the report,
So when we ask for a report.
if you want a report. Yeah. Anything else?
I'm thinking about, like readability in terms of, I look at every policy and I wanna make sure community feels like they can access it and understand what's going on. And so I'm just wondering, under policy development and maybe other sections where applicable, if we want to kind of like number like the steps, you know what I mean? Or just sort of like, I feel like you did a great job like writing it all out, but wherever there's like room to signal to people like what the actual steps are, I think could be helpful.
You mean like numbering the development and then the adoption and then the communication as separate steps and monitoring?
No, I think the headings are fine. I just mean like take policy development as a section, like there's like numerous steps that are named but in paragraph form, which I think is fine, but when I'm thinking about access and like how to like very quickly like look and see like, all right, what are the steps for like the policy development? I'm just wondering if there's a way to structure it so it's like a little bit more readable.
Yes, I can look on that.
I have one more thing for the rules and protocols delegation. I know we don't like definitions, but
Nice, what?
definitions, but I think reading this, like we define like what is a board policy, what falls into a board policy, but we don't define like what is a rule or protocol or like we say there are things that we delegated to the districts and that is and they implement written rules, standards, protocols, but like what is that? Like what is the difference? I know when in our training we figured out what that difference is and we leave it out specifically. Like what affects the board and what affects the district, things that the district does that has nothing to do with the board. I think maybe adding that language in, like, why did we decide these policies and protocols aren't for the board? So I feel like that language is not in there. So like in the future, when people are trying to decide policies on the future board of like, does this policy pertain to us? Should we keep this policy or should this policy be delegated? I feel like that is not on there.
Under
Explained.
purpose and scope, if you just flesh it out a little bit, it's maybe.
Yeah, because it doesn't talk about like, why did we delegate these policies?
Well, under purpose and scope, this is the purpose, that the superintendent develops and implements written rules, standards, protocols, and procedures.
I mean,
State
to
public work
guide
policy.
administration and operations of the school district.
So I think if you just add that. And they're different from policies because policies are defined below.
I have a question.
Yes.
On page 2, the last paragraph is those policy adoption. It says that the board president shall coordinate the placement and flow of proposed policies and policy amendments. And it says that's in the bylaw, I don't remember reading that, but, that whole paragraph feels like we can't do anything unless the president, maybe I'm reading wrong, unless the president, I guess coordinates it. Is that, am I reading it wrong, or is that what it's saying?
And that goes back to the legal question too, because the president or even leadership might not have the ability to make that determination if it's something the law.
I think we can strike that whole paragraph.
Yeah.
I think the whole paragraph can be stricken.
But if this isn't the bylaw, then we need to revisit the bylaw.
I don't think.
I don't
Let me
remember
take a
reading
look,
it,
let me
but-
take a
I think
look
it's
at
might
it.
be referring to the bylaws because it's saying that the president can control the agenda. And that's why he's trying to stay consistent with the bylaws.
Let me take a look at the bylaws. I think that if we're talking about where policies originate, that will clarify this a bit. And the process will be crisper if we can say it can come from one of 3 sources, it goes to the policy committee and then it goes to the board. And I don't think we need to worry about coordinating.
And it might be defined by the law in terms of timeline.
So I'll rewrite that whole section so it'll be clear.
And then my question is, I guess, resolution.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the purpose and scope, it does say that this policy is to describe the difference between board policies and board resolutions.
Does that have
To
to
leave
live here?
that
Yeah.
in this.
Do resolutions have to live on the, how to develop a policy?
The way I see this is a document that tells you the difference between the different kinds of laws that the board, it's all 3. Because you really want to know what a resolution is in relation to a policy.
So I think maybe in purpose and scope, that doesn't come out. I think what you're saying is that you want this to be what identifies our 3 governing the policies, the rules, and the resolutions. I feel like the resolutions get kind of added as like a forethought. What is a resolution? So maybe this is not a board policy process. Maybe it's more like, what are, I don't know. That's just.
I think what it's trying to do is to say, board passes policy and it passes resolutions, policies are binding, resolutions are not.
And it's kind of at the end.
Like, I guess we do, like, we need it, it's a good explanation to have, but I'm like, should it be in our board policy process?
Not in the process, just a definition now. Policies are binding, resolutions are not.
What we should call this is board policies, resolutions, and district rules. We can rename the policy so that you're really defining the 3 buckets of governance.
Yeah.
And I think you want to do it in one place so people understand the differences. And
it could be school board governance powers. I feel like that could be a good, there's something like that.
Okay.
So that way we know, like, these are our governance powers. Because if I'm looking for something about resolutions, I would not go looking for policy
School
process.
board governance.
I feel like process though, because it does like outline what the process is, it's not just like a glossary, you know what I mean?
But I think we should keep the body, maybe rename the title so that.
Yeah.
You have the governance thing that you've already passed, so I think like having policy and process in the title. Because they already have the governance.
I think my last, well, Sarah, and I might not have seen it, but I didn't see anywhere where it says policies have to go through the equity tool. That we talked about, and I know we said.
Is this the equity tool?
That was one that I had drafted because I had.
I didn't include it. I didn't purposely omit it. It's an oversight. So where,
Of the policy adoption, maybe, new policy or the policy amendment shall undergo a minimum of 2 readings prior to adoption. Or, I don't know, somewhere in that kind of section where we would say, it would have to be put through like the equity tool lens.
is that gonna be this document here?
Not necessarily, I think Heidi put one together for us, so
Okay.
Dr. Olivia has one.
But that's what this,
Well, because we had said we didn't want just an equity tool, we wanted something that also included our goals and guardrails.
Yeah.
So that's why I created one that had an equity lens with our goals and guardrails
Okay.
to see what you guys thought about it. See if you wanted to edit it. It was just like my first stab at it.
Oh, yeah.
It's literally like just a review tool. That is like a document that is like a check the box.
so should we just have it as a placeholder that says the policy?
I think this will change.
Yeah.
I don't think you even need to, I just think you need to have the language of like an equity tool that the board adopts.
Yeah.
Well, and equity and
Approval, yeah.
policy, it's not just an equity tool. It's a review through,
The goals and guardrails.
I don't think I realized you just going with that. Or, yeah.
Because it's equity, but also our goals and guardrails to make
she
sure
says student outcome alignment, accountability.
I think we should placeholder it, I feel like we need to probably do a working session just on what this is.
Okay.
Because I can see this being goals and guardrails, core beliefs,
Yeah.
and even just like, we do need to like legally, like look at this through like legal eyes as well, you know, to make sure. If it's gonna be a tool that we're looking at every policy through, I feel like we have to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Which
so,
this is a great first draft, to say maybe we.
so maybe just a placeholder for review to satisfy certain criteria that check the boxes. Okay, so I will, in that policy adoption, I'll add some language, placeholder language. Okay,
We should probably do that working session next policy meeting.
Yeah. I wanted to get this to you guys now so that way we could look at it for notes for our next.
The next session.
so do you want to think about what's on the next agenda?
Oh, yeah, what we doing.
So yeah, that is the next.
It seems like you have revisions to review next time, because all of this is gonna be up for grabs again, so both, all 3 policies, plus the Title VI that,
Yeah.
and maybe the equity tool.
Alrighty, so I think we're gonna go to that. What are we doing? Now we're identification process. Maybe we should just talk about this a little bit. 4.2. So I think what we should do going forward, because it's the identification process of drafting, revising, and updating. This just says legally required, but I think it should also be like all of the policies that we're gonna be revising for our next time. We should have some sort of routine of like we send it in before our meeting, and then we figure out, everyone can do our notes, and then when we get to our meeting, have everyone spend time reading it during our policy meeting. I'm saying for next time.
So what's on the agenda for next time? It's
So,
just not clear.
On the agenda, we would have to go back to these 3,
Okay.
figure out the revisions, and come back with the revisions on these 3.
And maybe we can commit to having those to the committee a week ahead of time, so they can read it, that way when we come,
Mhm.
maybe.
That's kind of what I think going forward, if we're gonna be presenting policy that is revised or new or whatever, we should try to have it in at least a week ahead of time, so that way people have time to read it, do their notes, and we're not reading it in the meeting. We can come in and just do the work. And then for next time, we can do our working session for the template. You guys can come in with your notes, what you wanna add, what you wanna change.
Working session for template of what?
This,
This,
the review tool,
Okay,
the policy review tool.
and then don't forget the Title VI.
Can we, just as part of our process, just like have like an email go out with like a note or something? I can take my own, but I just think it's important to do like recaps of like, this is what we said we're gonna do, this is the deadline. I don't mind helping with that, you know what I mean, or whatever, but I think that's kind of okay.
Sarah, I know you, so these legally required policies, we don't have any of these right now. Is that, do we have any of these?
Some of them.
Oh, yeah, we do. That's
Some of them, where it says number, like, you see some of them, I wrote number 508,
Oh, yeah.
dating, suicide prevention, we'll go visit. And there may be a few that I've left out, but,
Yes, we have a few of these that you don't have numbers for that, we'll make sure you get.
Okay.
So next time we're gonna be, I think our goal is that we wanted to do at least 3 new policies every meeting. So we'll do the policy review tool, Title VI. And then I was working on the school board superintendent relations policy, I can bring that for next time.
so we're gonna review, re-revise policies, look at the review tool, Title VI, which Dr. Anya is bringing in. And then you're gonna bring forward the superintendent.
School board relations.
Which one is that on the,
thing? I know this one,
which one is it?
That is on the first page, 2 of 3.
do we think it's realistic to, do all of those in one meeting?
Based on tonight now. Based on tonight now.
Yeah, just maybe I know we all have things to do, but I'm like an hour late for my class. I do on Tuesdays, so I'm just wondering if we could try to like, you know, even keep it to 2 hours or something.
I think you're gonna have enough with the working session on the review tool and finishing up these other policies.
So you don't wanna do
And
Title
plus you're
VI.
adding Title VI.
And
Yeah,
Title
yeah.
VI, but I don't think that's gonna be a heavy lift because Dr. Anya's got that under wraps, so.
And if we try to get these really a week in advance and we all read it, I mean, that's gonna put our time down by half, because we're not gonna spend time reading it while here. That's the idea.
I really wouldn't add more than that.
Yeah, because the reality is people all have lives outside of here, so some folks may not have time to really read it in advance. you know?
I can try to put in, next time I come, I can try to bring in a calendar just to, I know we're trying to do a schedule of getting through all of these. So I can try to figure out a realistically a way where we can give ourselves a deadline of when we want to review all these. I don't know if there's,
I think, let's just take it step by step. I think just, let's set a goal for next time. I think it'll get quicker, but I think,
Doesn't it go slow and the way you want it, and then to worry about an artificial timeline.
yeah, I have deliverables that I have to deliver to the entire president, so
Well, I think
that's my only concern.
We'll back you up.
well, that's the question, are we, what is the
these take years to do something like this.
I was wanting us to do 2 to 3 new ones every time we meet.
I think we need to make sure that that's aligned to, like, we have, like, there's like artificial time, like deadlines, then there's like real deadlines. Do you know what I mean? And I just wonder, like, is that just like based on instinct, or is that because the commissioner said we need to get it done? Like, There's some
Commissioner
things,
doesn't care about this.
right, well, that's what I'm saying, we were working to get some timelines with goals and guardrails that are related to return to global control. I don't think this is one of them.
She is, I don't think, I think as long as we can show that we're working on reforming the policy manual and we start with the board governance policies that the council has admonished us to focus on, I think you'll be fine.
And we have the legally required ones in place.
Yeah, and if there's something missing, you'll put that
Yeah,
together?
we have those.
Okay, all right. So I think,
So next time, we're just gonna do the revisions for the policy process, core beliefs, listening to the policy review tool and Title VI.
yeah, that would be my
Beautiful.
suggestion. And then, the next, so when is the next meeting?
That we have to talk about, because we're talking to Micah about possibly moving Wednesdays, because of the scheduling conflict for Wednesdays.
But this is a Tuesday.
Tuesdays no board.
Oh, you mean moving it to Wednesdays?
No, I'm moving it
Tuesdays.
because originally ours is the first Wednesday of every month,
Right.
but Angel is teaching us class on Wednesdays,
Got
so we're looking to move it to Tuesdays.
Okay,
Thursdays we can't do because Micah she's not available.
okay. So what's the first Tuesday in March?
It's March 3rd,
I'm out of town, but you don't have to.
also not gonna be around. Time to work, or is that too far out?
I don't know if there's any meetings that day.
We
March,
usually don't have meetings.
March 10th?
No, always move to some Tuesdays.
CTE. Just if it helps you feel a little bit better. We did a research, similar process in my previous district. In order to do it right, it took more than a year.
I mean, I
Normal,
figured
and it's okay.
it was gonna take forever because
Woonsocket is still doing it, and it's been more than a year.
It's
So
normal
the
and okay.
17th would be the next.
It actually took 2 to 3 years to go through the whole book and pull out stuff and draft new stuff. And it's very time consuming.
Or is the 17th?
No, of course, the time.
Course the 10th, so we would have to do March 17th.
I'm not here, but I don't think that much. So if you want me to look at anything ahead of time, I'm happy to send you comments, but I won't be here.
What's the date we're looking at?
March 17th.
Do we wanna try, I mean, I don't know if this makes sense or not, but do we wanna try to squeeze one in again at the end of the month? On the 24th?
I can do it.
That's a
I
good
think
idea.
health and wellness may have rescheduled for February 24th.
Of course they did. Are we not, we can't have, two at the same time, is it just a space and equipment situation?
It's also like a market situation.
Yeah, oh, yeah. There's not two of you, Martha?
I'm good, but I'm not that good.
Yeah, honestly, you could meet on I can get, so the 3rd, I am out of town, but I am not at all.
Yeah, I don't think we usually do.
Oh, you can't.
24th? March 24th?
Well,
No, health and wellness.
Oh, March.
No, March 24th.
Oh,
That's the last Tuesday.
Dang, that's bad.
Oh, well, the 17th wasn't an option?
No,
yeah,
it
it
is.
was.
It is.
So the
You said no.
24th of February.
Yeah, I was saying the 24th of February, but health and wellness. doing
Health and
something.
wellness, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they've been bumped a couple of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
the 17th, does that work?
Yeah.
Question, can
So
we-
that's March 17th.
March
Yeah.
7th.
Can we change to the 3rd Tuesday of the month and have that be our thing going forward? Instead of the first Wednesday, that way it's continued.
That's fine.
Yeah.
3rd Tuesday of the month,
Yeah, because Corey is the second Tuesday of the month.
so we'll take the.
He took the second Tuesdays for CTE.
Okay.
So the 3rd works. I can switch everything over to the 3rd.
So
I mean,
what's
to the-
what's the date of the 3rd Tuesday?
The 17th, March 17th.
March 17th.
Okay.
Yeah, so going forward, we will always do the 3rd Tuesday.
Okay, I'll play with the calendar tomorrow.
3rd Tuesday, March 17th.
And I'll send a recap email. Does everybody have it?
Yeah.
It'd be in the minutes anyway.
It's like,
Yeah,
it's basically minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Awesome.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Yay.
Thank you. We did a lot today.
I didn't realize, yeah, 3 at a meeting might be a lot to try to revise.
It would be a lot.
I didn't realize it would take, yeah, that was a lot.
A lot of good things that we'll get more efficient as we keep going.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I will send a recap email, but it looks like we have to, what our revisions of everything would have to be sent to the